Hi, my name's Caleb Arthur, and I'm the owner of Missouri Sun Solar. This is a 5 kW or a 5,000 watt solar panel system in Afton, Missouri. You can see the panels are mounted directly on the roof. The wires go in conduit, go down the side of the house and into the basement. Next, we're going to show you exactly how the solar panel electricity goes into the inverter and goes back into Ameren's grid. How this system works is the sun shines on the solar panels. The solar panels actually absorb the sunlight, change sunlight over into DC electricity. That DC electricity goes into copper wiring. The copper wiring goes into conduit, that goes into the basement, and then that DC electricity is captured by something called an inverter. That inverter then turns around and makes AC usable electricity like that your house already has. When you plug something into the wall outlet, that's the same kind of electricity that is produced by the inverter that takes the DC juice from the solar panels. Next, we will show you exactly how the inverter part of the system works, but this is the main part of a solar panel system that makes it work so well, is the actual solar panels. You can actually see how some of them are standing up, some of them are sitting down. You can actually put them any which way you need to get enough on a roof to make it work. You can put them all standing up, you can put them all laying down, you can put them however you need to. The more panels you fit on your roof, the more electricity you get to produce, and the less of electric bill you will have. This part we're going to talk about the AC disconnect switch and the actual Ameren meter that has been replaced. Now how this system works is, whenever your inverter creates AC power, it will backfeed into your house, and whatever extra your house does not use will flow into this Ameren meter. There's little arrows on here, and whenever you're feeding extra electricity onto the grid that you're not using, your arrows will go backwards. You will produce a credit. That credit you will reuse at night when the arrow is coming back the other way. So you put in a system that produces more electricity than you need during the day, and that creates a credit on the grid, and then at night you're debiting that credit back off and zeroing out your bills. So even if you don't put in a battery backup system, you're still going to be able to get rid of your electric bills completely if you have enough room for the solar panels. If you're like our customer Ron we just talked to, he did not have enough roof space for all the solar panels he needed, but he's still able to offset about half his electrical usage with what we produce for him. Some customers' meters will run backwards the entire day. Some customers' meters will only run backwards when they're not home and not using a bunch of stuff. We can actually calculate what your savings will be, and we just wanted to kind of show you how this meter operates. Now the AC disconnect is a safety feature. This has nothing to do with your home other than if Ameren or someone needs to come work on your system, they will actually be able to pull this disconnect down and disconnect your solar panels from the grid so that they can work on something. This box, it has fuses in it, it's tied directly to the system, and it has to be labeled with this red label. It has numbers and different information on it, and this is strictly for maintenance issues or if there's some kind of safety concern. It can be shut down immediately through this lever right here. Right above it you see a disconnect box with a lightning arrestor, lightning surge protector. What this is actually the solar panel wiring coming off the solar panels down to the inverter in the basement. Now what will happen is if the top gets hit by lightning, you have a solid copper rod that will go into the ground with the lightning. You also have a surge protector to protect your panels and your inverter, and we're getting ready to show you that here in the basement. We're now in the basement of the 5 kW solar system that we've installed. This is called an SMA Sunny Boy inverter. It is rated at 5,000 watts, and it can take up to 5,000 watts solar and produce up to 5,000 watts alternating current. Now the conditions have to be pretty good for that to happen. Most of the time, if you have 5,000 watts worth of solar panels hooked to a 5,000 watt inverter and you have regular sunlight, it might only produce 3,000 or 4,000 watts. All of our calculations put this into perspective, but just to kind of show you how this system operates, you have DC wires with the solar panel juice coming into the side of the inverter right here. It goes through a UL safety listed DC disconnect where you can actually shut down the inverter, turn the inverter on. That way you can disconnect the inverter from the solar panel safely. This little green light here tells us that the system is working. It has a display that cycles through and lets you know what it's producing. It tells you that the backup state is in grid mode, and we'll get into that here in a minute. It's producing 3,387 watts at almost 4 p.m., so we're producing very, very well for how low the sun's already getting. It talks about these inverters will tell you how much is produced over a month. It'll tell you how much is produced over a year. It'll tell you if there's any kind of issues. If something goes wrong with one of these inverters, it'll give you a red light. It will also give you a number, and that number will tell us if something has gone wrong and how to fix it. The next part of this system is that it actually travels back into the main power breaker box of the house. Now the main power breaker box of the house is here, and we list it as alternating power source currents. You see another protected surge protector for lightning, and if the grid gets hit by lightning and it tries to backfeed to your inverters or your system, this breaker will actually catch it. Now, all we need when we go into someone's house to hook up inverters is we need a spot for a double throw breaker. This is usually the only thing we have to look at ahead of time other than where everything's going, is if you have room in your breaker box. If you don't, that's fine. We can upgrade, we can change things around, but that's kind of how the electricity works. So you have DC juice coming in from the solar panels. This inverter changes it over to AC. The AC alternating current comes out at 240 volts, which is what your grid comes in at. That backfeeds into your main breaker box, and then you also have that disconnect outside that we showed you with the red label on it. That disconnect is where it disconnects in between your inverter and your breaker box. So if they have to work on something, they can shut that off so nobody gets shocked by anything. You have your breaker box, you have your inverter, and that's the only parts you need for a normal grid tie system. Now we talked about this system has a battery backup. Well, how does that work exactly? Well, what it does is you have this yellow box, and it's also made by SMA, and it's called a Sunny Island. What the Sunny Island does is it can take this inverter and turn it into a power source when the grid disconnects. So if the grid fails or the disconnect shut off outside, this inverter automatically will start powering this without even the lights flickering. So if the power goes out, you will continue to run either off the inverter or off. There's a battery bank right here. We have 8 batteries in this wooden box, and then the batteries are connected to a DC battery disconnect right here with another breaker, and then that feeds the Sunny Island. The Sunny Island can take generator power, it can take grid power, it can take solar panel power to run the house and to recharge the batteries. So these systems are very sophisticated, but they're also very simple. You see there's not a lot of buttons, there's not a lot of detail to it. It's just mostly getting the wires run. This gray box here, it's called a Sunny Island Smart Former. It's just a mate to this, so that it's mostly all you have is a nice little breaker box where you can bypass and work on the system to where your loads, your house doesn't completely go offline. Now, how this system works is we have a breaker box that's considered a critical loads panel. What this critical loads panel will do for you is, let's say you have a house that has 30 breakers in it and you have lights and you have everything running. Well, during a power outage, there's a few things most people want to run. They'll want to run a submersible pump if they have it for water. They'll want to run their refrigerator, their freezer, a deep freeze, some critical lighting, maybe a basement. So what we did here at Ron's house was we took the entire basement, the lighting and the outlets where he has his fridge and his deep freeze backup. We made all that be able to run off this system. So all that goes into this protected loads panel, as well as their kitchen upstairs. So what will happen is the grid will fail or be shut down from power outage, lightning, whatever would happen to make the grid fail, and this system will operate entirely independently. So what this system does is it turns into an off-grid solar setup at that point. Most of the time it works just as a battery backup, but when there's no grid, it's actually considered an off-grid system because it's not tied into the grid anymore once that's broken to where it operates independently. So we kind of went through the different parts of the battery backup off-grid scenario. It's a very good option for customers that want to run different items when there's a power outage. It's not any cheaper than a generator, but you don't have to refill it with gasoline, and it will last for years and years and years. It'll work very well. As you can hear, very quiet, has no sound to it. It's hidden in the basement. Nobody knows it exists, or unless they personally come in and know him. It's a very nice little tidy system. It fits in about an 8-foot spot on the wall, and it looks very nice, works very well, no issues, everything's the same brand, all works very well together, professionally installed. You couldn't ask for a better system to work. This will work day, night, whenever you need it to. Offset their electric, still have great savings, and it all works together. Thank you for watching our video we've produced. We try to show you everything we can. This is pretty much the most complex system you can install as a battery backup. This is in St. Louis County in Afton, Missouri. Thank you for tuning in.